in shambles trying to get everything.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so it's been a long time.
Has it? I know. It did seem like time passed fast. I was like, I need to go around again.
No, I think it's been like a month.
Has it?
Uh-huh.
Gosh.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how it works, by when someone really makes progress. If you think back, our work was really intense in the beginning.
Yeah.
2 times a week, it was a lot.
Yeah.
And it was good to do that. But if after you start to really process things on your own and get to a place where you feel pretty stable, it's important that you function on your own. So.
Yeah, and actually, one of the things I thought was kind of neat about this weekend was because I'm still kind of getting comfortable at the weight that I'm at, and my sisters, like everybody that came over was like really into like the supremacy thing.
Oh, of course.
Like, you know what? I am just gonna have fun. So
yeah, and let them.
I felt like I was just like I'm kind of observing their like. I don't know if I look in this bathing suit. I was like, oh, whatever. So anyway, it kind of was like, it felt like a little bit of a milestone for me because I was a little bit nervous at first, but it was nice to just enjoy myself with my family.
I love it. Well, and that is kind of a trigger point for a lot of people because the illusion is that if my siblings are dieting and they're getting thinner, they're going to hit that pearly gates of heaven for thin supremacy. And, it's like the illusion that they're benefiting and you're being left behind. That has been a trigger for some people, and also that it's like. I
did feel that in the past for sure.
Yeah.
Friends and sisters and things like, oh, I'm going to do it too. I'm going to do keto. I'm going to starve myself with like.
That's the other part is the actual team bonding over co-dieting, like working on it together, and it can be really unifying. And some people really feel like left out, not just because they think, oh, they're going to reach the mirage, but people really actually get something out of dieting with a group. And so when you are trying to recover and you can see other people talking about, oh my God, this is diet. Have you read this? Oh my God, I got to share this book with you. Did you hear this? Did you see this? That there's an idea that you're actually your friends and you have something in common, and it can feel like loss to some degree for people who really got a lot out of that. I know for me that it was so horrific. My suffering was so horrific that I would rather be stabbed in the eyeballs than to have friends that just wanted to talk about thinness.
Right. I can see how I wouldn't want to be around it all the time, but yeah.
Yeah, well, and I have a lot of friends who are totally into it. And you know how I feel about it and how I have felt about it since the beginning is it's really their process to figure out. It's their sense of self. It's their sense of connecting with our culture, and that's not my business. And if that's what they really believe in, I support it. I support them to do that, even though I have my own experience and I have the witness of everybody I'm working with. Not everybody has the extremism of an eating disorder or disordered eating, even though everybody who's actually dieting has symptoms of issues with food because they're animals, But so I just figure, if that's what they need to do and that's what they truly believe they need to pursue, losing weight to feel better that's what they should do. And if they find a way to manage the animal impulse and instinct to eat all the time while they try to deprive all the time, good for them. If that's what they want to do with their life, it's their life. It's not mine. I don't need to convince them to do something else or tell them what to do based on what's right for me,
Yeah, and I did feel that where I was just like, oh, well, y'all have your thing and this is fine for me. So, and then it was fun too because we put on the Nintendo Just Dance.
Oh yeah, that's fun. Yeah,
the Wii. And I love to dance, so I was like dancing. I was like, this is great. Like I'm still moving around. I'm not trying to feel like I have to be perfect first. So I do feel like I'm seeing some positive stuff as far as body image. So I did a bunch of gardening and weeding and crap And I was like, yeah, I probably should exercise a little bit, though, just so I can move comfortably.
Yeah, or stretch your back out, especially after gardening, making sure you get, you know, your hips and your back stretched out and balanced out. Like yoga is really good. Gardening's hard on the body. You're bending, you're squatting. It's good on the body because you're forcing these huge, big ranges of movement, right? You know, the range of motion with the joints, but it can be really hard as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was a bit of a challenge.
Here's a question.
It kind of motivate me to start moving more because I do enjoy movement, especially when it's something that's fun, like dancing or stuff like that.
Totally.
So,
well, and the joy of it is just the actual fact that you like it, you enjoy it. You know, and it's okay if you like the benefit of the flexibility and the strength. The problem occurs with the body image stuff is when you're identifying who you are by it in a way that is superior or beneficial, or it's like a promotion of yourself. There's where the issues come in. So when I meet people, and this is very common in the fitness industry and actually foundational to how the fitness industry sells itself, is you are to some weird degree, depending on whatever you're doing. Like if you're a triathlete, there is a definite subculture around triathletes and the specialness around it and the camaraderie around training. You know, I've had, not saying that's where you're at, but just the fitness, even in the yoga space, if you take it, it's not the actual sport. It's not the act of dancing. It's when you internalize it as I am superior, I am better, this is who I am, this makes me special. Now there might be some issues around it, around how it can impact your sense of being. So I have a really good friend, one of my best friends, who has suffered from binge eating before. And she has definitely made huge changes, and she still relies on exercise for that reason. Like it really is symbolic. It's symbolic of my work ethic, that I am taking care of myself, you know, that again, supremacy around the image of taking care of yourself, the image of looking fit, and the symbolism that we kind of, it's like the mirage around it, right? Like, oh, it symbolizes that I am special and unique and wonderful, and I'm so amazing with myself. That's where things go wrong. Well, I don't even want to say it goes wrong. It's just that what it promotes is that pressure and the feeling bad if you don't do it. Yeah, it's feeling bad if you don't do it. And that's where you want to, when you're kind of, when people recover from an eating disorder, they have to really go into what is intrinsic versus what type of superficial benefit do I want, especially when it comes to how people perceive me. The goal is that people's perception of you doesn't have any reality, right? Someone can think you're amazing and special because of some physical or something, but correct. That is insignificant to your own sense of why you're doing it. That someone's opinion about it is irrelevant. Like you would do it because it's important to you or because you feel good about it. And if someone wants to judge you or not, that doesn't matter. You know.
You said something in one of your videos recently about how like the body is God's will, and then the ego like tries to either like take pride, like even if you did, and that really resonated with me. As like, it's funny how it's not like we're sitting there, we know how to direct our mitochondria or do this and that, and yet we want to say that we've done something.
Yeah, when you really...
we may actually get out of the way and let the body do it. I kind of like that.
Well, again, you can see, okay, well, if I take that, I'm going to take ownership of this and, you know, force this, that you could see that then you're probably trying to use it as a display of your goodness, right? So it's the symbolism of I'm in control, and with the body's performance is important for my own sense of safety. with me, you know, and it's not just safety for health purposes, because that's really about your fear of death. Again, it's very self-centered, which is how that mechanism is wired, right? There's no judgment on that. That's how it's wired. It benefits us as humans. It has kept us here on this planet for a long time to be self-centered around and having the anxiety or fear around death. So when we look at, again, just the idea that I'm going to take credit for what the body has done, first of all, it's that you have to have the belief that what the body has done, let's just say it's losing weight or performing in some type of competition, like a marathon or whatever, that I'm going to take credit for that. So you have to believe that what it is you're achieving is perceived as a benefit or positive. Right?
Yeah.
So there's a belief in there that this is better. So that's what most people don't question. So because it's just promoted that way. It's promoted that way in your gym, like saying that I've eliminated all sugar, as if that's actually healthy. And and the pride attached to it, right? So we could say, well, eliminating sugar is here nor there. That's like saying I wash my face or don't wash my face. You know, if it's not no emotional attachment to it. But again,
well, and it's interesting. I came across a whole subject matter that was super interesting about using frequency for healing and different things, which I'd heard about before, but one of the things that the person said was that the body is the ultimate, like, musical instrument. But to me, that's more of, like, the beauty of watching, like, Tony Hawk do an amazing skateboard, or somebody who's expressing themselves, but it's not the same thing as micromanaging the body.
No, it's not. You're correct.
So
well, one of my favorite gurus, Dr. David R. Hawkins, talks about those levels of accomplishment as not the individual, but their level of consciousness in that frame of mind. So when Tony Hawk is doing all this crazy shit, he's probably, his consciousness at that moment is super high, meaning he's not afraid of death. He's not afraid to fail. The fear doesn't exist so much. He doesn't care what other people think. He's just allowing it to be. They call it in the zone.
Naturally working in perfection almost without him. Yeah, that sense of control kind of thing.
Totally. He's going off a feel, not knowledge. It's a feel versus knowledge. And some of it could be knowledge, but most of it is a feel thing, which comes from consciousness. Yeah, the body's doing it. The potential of the human body when given that freedom. It is really fascinating. And I remember in college studying sports psychology in one semester, talking about the difference between the highest level performing athletes and why they eventually become more successful than some people who might have physical capacity that's bigger and better than theirs. And the difference they found was across the board was that the successful athletes at that level aren't afraid to lose. They actually see that losing, if they lose, the benefit for them is that they actually get to understand where their weaknesses are. They don't criticize the weakness. They don't feel bad about the weakness. So they don't attach their value to their performance. They actually really enjoy what they're doing. They appreciate the sport. They appreciate the game. Right? They actually are connecting with the pleasure of what they're doing. And of course, winning is awesome. That's positively reinforcing, but that's not the main reason why they do it. It's because they actually love the sport. And so the willingness to lose, what that does is they're more likely to actually seek out competition where they actually believe the person is better than them, the competition is better than them.
Oh, okay, right. So
okay,
that they can
correct.
Find out
where they're weak and what they want to, and to see how their strategy is, and because it's not a personal thing. It's about the experience of the sport. It's not about me proving myself as a human being. Versus the athletes who are talented and gifted and are getting personal validation from the fact that they are special, and their winning is giving them that social confirmation. I'm winning. And what that does is makes them afraid to lose. And so they seek out competition that is weaker and worse than them because they can guarantee the win, which means they can guarantee their narcissistic winning of supremacy. So it really comes down to someone who's in those lower states of survival using the sport and competition to feel better and compensate versus those who are not in survival and actually enjoy the sport. The higher your level of consciousness, the better you're going to perform, even if you physically don't necessarily have the same capacity. I can say that from my own experience as an athlete. My best performances, even in track and field, because I did the heptathlon, which is complicated. There's seven things. Best performances came from when I just didn't care about winning.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to do the best I can, and whoever is really, you know, they're going to, anyway, so that really is a sense. I mean, that across the board as a human in performance. I mean, look at how this can impact, and they've done studies on this around what's called self-determination and intrinsic motivation and what promotes those things. Because what they found with research is when an adult is self-driven and it's intrinsically guided, that they are happier, less depression, less significant. And the more extrinsically guided and the more not self-determined, meaning it's determined by my mom, my dad. It's determined by my fear of what they think of me. It's my desire for them to love me through this route. You're more likely to have substance abuse, mental illness, and you have firsthand experience with that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I've almost felt like I've had times in my life where it's been intrinsic, but a lot of times with the extrinsic, and just that battle of finding where I want to be. So, yeah.
Well, and you have to really look at, and in that research, they also talk about internalizing. When there is a belief and it is internalized, it is perceived as self. It is perceived as intrinsic, even though, and that's, you know, the goal in society would be, how do we get our culture to buy in to this idea, right? And so the goal is that someone internalizes the belief, and then it feels as if they are doing it for themselves. There's a benefit to that, and there's a big downside, because if you're teaching a culture to hate other cultures, to hate your own country, you are becoming, because now they're easy to manipulate because they think it's their belief, when in reality it's an internalized belief given to them by some dogma that has some type of manipulative potential, right?
Yeah.
The goal here is that, I think, it's not to say that we shouldn't have internalized ideas, because there is when we have society as it is, there's a purpose and a benefit to us all believing we should pay our taxes.
Yeah.
Right?
And yeah.
We should be taxed.
Kind of brings me to one of the things I really want to discuss. I realized, so I took my 8-year-old to the doctor, and I actually have always known this, but I kind of forgot as I was going down in my spiral. But my 8-year-old has Asperger's, and I've never gotten him diagnosed, but part of that was that I had the issue with the label. Well, my oldest son, the reason I began homeschooling is dyslexic. And again, I am aware of this because I've worked so much with him. But as I'm getting him into school, I'm now, I'm going to go, I have to go get my 8-year-old tested. The pediatrician, which for some reason our pediatricians never, I guess, paid attention enough to talk about it with us before, but this one here in Florida, wrote it on our physical exam that you need to go ahead and, get this looked into or whatever for my 8-year-old. And then my oldest, who's going into 8th grade, hasn't really, they haven't seen yet what's kind of going on, but I know that he's going to also. So I managed to not tell either one of my children that they had this thing, let's say, and part of it was just me not learning how to process people who say things about disabilities. I feel like I get a little bit triggered by that word.
Well, you definitely have issues. You definitely have issues with it. If you didn't, you wouldn't care what anybody thought. So you have your own bias and stigma. Yeah, you're stigmatizing that. Like there's something wrong, or that, again, remember when I said when you use things as an indication of your worth, and that's what you're doing. And remember when I said to you, but to do this stuff, you have to believe in a concept of superior. Like, I believe that running a marathon makes me superior, right? Therefore, if I don't run a marathon this year, I feel bad. I have to hide. I'm going to pretend like, oh, I got an injury. I have to excuse. So for you, there's a belief somewhere in there that when people have these issues, it must be an indication that they're worthless.
Yeah, I can see how, I always felt like they both have really unique positive traits.
Yeah. Hey, I want you to know that I have a form of dyslexia. You're talking to someone that has that. And, major learning disabilities. I didn't read until I was 4. Should I feel bad about that?
No.
I know. I'm just trying to help you get. I'm trying to help you get out of your context. Yeah, I'm trying to get you out of that context. Like, you're protecting your kids from your stigma around it. You're the one who's the asshole. So the mama bear is you, who's the ass about it. I say that in kindness, but why would you need to defend your kids from something so not a big deal?
No, it's really not. I think what happened was, like, my oldest, when he went to kindergarten, it started like they were not letting him go to recess because he wasn't finishing his pages on time. Whatever. It was like a private school that we were paying for. I didn't really have the public school system great where I was. So in my mind, I was like, well, I'm going to homeschool. Well, I thought all sorts of right brain, learning programs, and just really had to dive into what he needed. And then I had another son on top of that who had kind of like a different set of needs. So I definitely burned myself out trying to do all that. But I didn't really intend for it to go that far. And I guess just as I got into the homeschool, but then whenever his brother came along, and then it just became too much for me to do both of them.
Yes, of course.
And then he goes back to school. So it's like, and now that we're in Florida, we have access to probably a better opportunity.
Of course.
So it's definitely time for me to let go. So, but I was kind of processing because I was like, wow, it's just, I'm sure that they'll probably transition fine and we'll get all the support that we need. But as I'm kind of coming out of life, but I was definitely in like this massive overprotection mode for years. So
did you feel that it just makes me wonder, and I could be wrong, how much of that idea of my children are really an indication of how valuable or good we are as parents, that, like keeping up with the Joneses mentality. So when you go into this private school, like my kids are just as great as a performer, and, that competition with your children.
Well, and the thing with the private schools is they don't have resources. So if you don't fall in the norm, you're basically just kicked out. They don't.
I guess that depends on the structure of that program.
The way that
because some people go to private schools because they have specialty programs, because they are.
See, that's actually like the norm in the New Orleans area is send your kids to private school because of the public schools. They purposely must not put money in them.
Well, they don't. You're living in poverty in Louisiana. There's a shit ton of poverty. The worst poverty in the country is in the South. Of course.
You wouldn't even bring your kids to
no,
school
and the
there.
South doesn't necessarily value education. It's not uncommon that people just don't even graduate from high school. It's just a different culture.
Yeah. So we just had like various things, but I do sense a little bit of that, just in the fact that if I see other people's like quote unquote, I don't even use the word I hate to say it, because I don't really feel this way, but like normal in the sense of traditional learning style, whatever, growth pattern as like, but and so anyway, mine are unique, and that's fine. I didn't really mean, I don't think, I just overwhelmed myself with feeling like I could do it all by myself.
Well, then there's that, and combine it with the idea that you're trying to get your children to perform at a certain level.
Yeah.
When you want them to perform at that level.
Right.
So it's not just that. It's like, think about what else you brought to the table. Again, this is where I have 3 kids. I don't have any special needs with those kids like me. I do see the attention deficit. My daughter has similar issues that I have. I can tell how she reads, and so it makes me think that she's similar to me in that regard. But I run into parents all the time who are very much around my child's performance is really important. My child's performance is really important. And you know how I feel about it? I feel sorry. I feel sorry for the parent, and I feel sorry for the child, because neither of them understand what they're doing, right? Other than the parent believes that the performance of the child is so important to survival.
I think I just didn't want anyone to affect the kid's psyche while they were developing to make them think that, label them with a disability that they then take on and believe that they somehow have this, as where I'd rather them to...
I understand that. I understand that. At the same time, now they're being neglected to some degree.
So they are not getting like all of their rights.
No,
exactly. It's time to...
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at it from like, okay, well, I understand that, but where did it get to extreme to the point where you're in denial? I think you can sense that. Maybe did you have any denial around it, or I know there's issues, but I want to.
My way was like, I'm gonna find a new program to try, and we'll try this method. Like I've tried.
Okay, I get
all these methods.
Yeah. Okay, so all of this is just random content around the idea that my child's performance is really important. Their education, And of course, yes. But if
successful homeschooling parent, like I decided, I wasn't good enough. I must not be doing something good enough. Like,
never questioning the concept of performance is the issue. Like, why can't whatever their natural capacity is? So I know for me, and every kid is different. And it's a disability relative to the standard way that it's taught. So when I learned to teach myself, my learning curve skyrocketed, like massive shift. But it took for me to get there, almost being held back in 7th grade. They were like, we just don't think you can stay with your class. I was getting F's and D's. I did it my entire childhood, even up to 7th grade. And I knew, so socially I was normal. Interacting with kids, I was normal, but my capacity to learn, it was almost like I go to class and it would be like jumbled up. So I have they think an auditory form of it.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah. So I don't, and if they speak too fast and my brain doesn't track it, I can't understand it. So.
Right. That's exactly
totally. That's how I exist today. But if I can teach myself, if I can, this is where the capacity to teach myself, this is how you're benefiting from me teaching myself.
Right.
Because if I can learn it from, the inside, I have a point. So, once it is the stigmatizing of it, as if I'm dumb, he's dumb, they're dumb. That
I think I didn't want other people to do that to him.
Okay, but that's what happens whether he's dumb or not. It's going to happen because the assholes who are raising kids, who have to be the best in the class, are going to tell everybody below them they're dumb.
Right.
And
That's what I'm
correct. And you know what's better than to be afraid of being called dumb is to actually not care if they're perceived as dumb. What if I am dumb? Okay.
But you're not.
but you're telling what you're saying, and I want you to really sink this in. By defending yourself from that, you're actually agreeing that being dumb is a bad thing. You agree.
Right. My argument is, but it's not dumb. Like,
no, but it is. It is relative to Einstein. But even then, so you need to get my point. It's like, well, how when someone says you're fat, well, that's a relative statement.
Yeah.
I would be considered fat to an anorexic.
Right.
You know? So when you look at, so what? So what's wrong with that? So you're going, but you're not that, Robin. You're not.
Right. That's what I'm doing.
You're defending the idea that that's a bad thing. It's like, so I commonly see this in terms of then supremacy with, well, but I am funny and I'm smart. So being fat is okay because I have all these other things to show and prove that I'm not bad. So essentially you believe dumbness is badness. You actually believe it. And that's kind of makes sense, right? Remember when I was like, you're the asshole. You're the one who's stigmatizing them and trying to protect them.
It's like that belief system.
You believe it.
Like buried somewhere.
Got it. It's not buried. It's conscious. We're talking about it right now. Yeah, it's totally conscious. You just never question it. Okay. Why is being dumb bad? Are they not good people? Do they not have good integrity? What's wrong with being dumb? What if they are dumb? What if I am actually dumb? And I have to say, I am. I'm dumb to what I don't know. I'm dumb to what I'm not aware of yet. So why is that so bad?
Yeah,
I just don't think it's a bad thing.
I can see how I developed this entire mama bears
to your own belief system. You're trying to protect your kids from your own stigma around it. That's no different than my mom and dad raising me in religion. Same thing. They believe, that my mom and dad believed, my mom for sure, not so much my dad, that, that sexual nature was something that we needed protection from. Well, guess who came out of the closet when she was on her deathbed around how horny she was as a teenager? I was dying when my mom was telling me this stuff. I was like, if you had told me this, oh my God, my life would be so different. The shame I had having sex with someone because I felt so bad because my mother created this idea of perfection around that area, even though she was like, oh yeah, I was totally making out with kids when I was in 8th grade. I'm like, you wait until you're dying to tell me this? We were both laughing so hard. I was like, Mom, I wish you would have. It was, but it's like when you say the mama bear in hers wanted to, she probably felt bad about it herself and thought because she was in that religion and, we're supposed to be so pure.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, I know. It is funny. It is funny. Now, on this side of it, right, would I have thought it was funny when I was being raised in it?
Yeah.
Fuck no.
And it's like, I think my kids are so awesome, so I just need to realize that my belief system
around smartness
is actually the jerk.
Yeah. No, I love that you just said that. I love, because you just internalized it. You're not a jerk. That's a jerky belief system.
Yeah.
That's an asshole belief system. And when you internalize it, guess who becomes that asshole? You do, even though you're not inherently an asshole. You're not by nature an asshole. This is something.
Right.
Smart people are better people, so I better protect my kids from being seen as dumb, because dumb is bad.
Mm-hmm.
So simple, right? It's so simple. It's like, it's right in your face. It's like, oh my God.
You know what else is crazy? It's like my kids. It's God. Well, and it's funny because I kind of did have a conversation to God about this, and he's like, "You're trying to carry everybody's cross." He's like, "I gave that one to him. I gave that one to him."
Yeah,
like,
it's not your karma. Why are you making it yours?
What they're gonna do? Well, my youngest son, and it's funny because I guess I obviously have a lot of karma around this. We only have boy stuff in the house, and he loves Elsa.
Oh, go get him some Elsa stuff.
He's got Elsa doll. He got it Elsa 5 because he loves Elsa.
Oh, that's really
he's
sweet.
Going to kindergarten. I know. He went to Disney World and got to meet Elsa. I mean, he was huge. He loves princesses.
Oh, I love it.
And we're like, well, I'm not gonna make him feel bad. I mean,
of course not.
Actually, a super not that I have to defend him, which I can see how I almost.
I know. I was just about to say she's about to say she's good here, but bad there.
Boy, which is funny because he's like this super rough and tumble, and he loves princesses.
Well, maybe he needs more princess in his life.
I guess so.
Maybe he needs the balance between the two, and maybe the aggression comes from the fact that hasn't been allowed or hasn't expressed certain things he's unaware of yet. And how can you know those things? Because you're not in his soul space. You only know until you kind of like practice. Like, how is his demeanor? If he gets to wear an Elsa dress, does he all of a sudden become kind and sweet? Not that it has to do with the dress, but he's finally feeling good. Who knows? Yeah. And who cares? If this is his reality.
Yeah. Because it's funny because, like, his dad and his oldest brother from, the stepson, they're super sportsy men, kind of.
Yeah.
So it's funny that he's being born and, likes this. So I've got, 3 kids who all have different quirky shit.
Yeah.
Obviously supposed to be meant to learn this lesson because they all have these unique things. So anyway.
Well, and what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
The illusion that we're all supposed to be the same, and that being different is so bad. Notice the brainwashing involved in that. There's so much control in the belief systems around who you can be and what's safe to be. What you have to conform to. You have to be either on the far right or the middle left, which to the far right is extreme left. You know what I mean? It's like you have to pick and choose this or that, and identify yourself or be defined by something in an extreme way. That's how people who are radicalized think and feel. The radicalized brainwashing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could say you've been to some degree radicalized, and you're now coming out of it.
Yeah, because it's funny, too, how the far right and the far left are identical. And, you can see so many similarities, even though they have, because I've been around both people who were right. So, yeah. Yeah, the whole thing.
Yeah, it's just ignorance. Total ignorance.
And I, as a mom, I won't, with my kids going to school, I can't possibly always be angry about these things. So I have to get over that.
Well, because it's reality.
Yeah.
There's an idea, there's concept, and then there's reality.
Yeah.
Right? There's a mental concept, and then there's what is in fact true. There's what you think it should be, and then there's what it is.
Right.
Even in the past, you can say, well, what I thought it should be and what actually occurred. It's the difference between your concept and reality. And when you don't question the concept, you're going to then question reality, and you're going to be miserable forever. So many people who are have signs of depression are rejecting the reality. They're rejecting truth to some degree. They're accommodating to a concept, even if they're very successful at that concept. Like, I have a big house, I have the nice car, I have everything I need, I have my favorite shoes and all the purses of all this, but I'm miserable. Well, because you at some point accepted that as what is real, and you kind of neglected the reality of what is, you could say, the Louis Vuitton of the inside.
Right.
You're ignoring that. You're hollow, So when do you reject all of this illusion of stuff, or illusion of being smart, for really where the wellspring of joy is on the inside, versus, I have to create a false concept of what that is on the outside based on what I'm told. Yeah. You're not even creating that concept, but you think you have once you've internalized it. That's where the danger is of internalizing, is when a person is not aware that they have internalized a concept given to them by
definitely.
And then they think it's their concept. So it becomes their identity, identify who they are. So that is a difference. So I could say, of course, I'm prone to brainwashing. I'm a human being. But the more aware you are of these concepts, and you differentiate them from, what you are and the truth of what you are, you won't internalize it as who I am. So you can assimilate to a culture and the programs of the culture, but it isn't who you are or what you are. I'm American, but the concept of American that is, promoted, I don't necessarily identify by that. What's my concept of country?
So how would I explain it? Let's just say I was like, one of my kids will eventually have an issue. And how would you explain that same concept to a child who's just have been maybe bullied or somebody?
Yeah, I mean, I have my own children. My daughter Chloe's been bullied, my oldest. I mean, we all have to some degree. I mean, yeah. I have family they're bullies. I have a family member who's an extreme bullier. Fear-mongering, fear-based bullshit. And part of it is allowing them to see that the person who is that way, what I would do is flip it around into compassion for why someone would be that way. Why do you think that person would be that way?
Okay.
Do you think maybe he's unhappy, or maybe because he clearly has to be the best? Do you think maybe that if he's the best, that his parents might be more proud of him? That it gives him a sense of being liked? I just try to open it up to not be about my child.
Okay.
It's not about my child. Someone who's that way really is about them. And the way that I talk about it is with compassion. They must be really... Think about what it would take for someone to hack into your account. Mm-hmm. They must be paranoid. Oh my God, could you imagine being so paranoid that you think someone's talking bad about you to where you're willing to hack and try to find a way to get into their Instagram account?
Oh, right.
Well, that happened to my daughter. And so that's how we approached it, which was like, when someone is really this, they need help. They maybe need to see a therapist. It's just a sign that they don't feel very safe. And they think you're dangerous. So do you see how, I don't know if that makes any sense. So
yeah, that does. That makes sense.
Well, the goal for me is like to get them out of the content of what's going on and look at the context for why would something like this go on, so that they don't necessarily have to engage with it as a personal thing. They can just forgive that person, even if they're continuously getting bullied by it. Like, the next thing is talk to the counselor. Talk to the counselor.
Yeah.
There are school counselors.
Yeah, I'm going to set up before school even begins.
Yeah, so there's a connection.
Next week, the guidance, yeah.
Yeah, just so that he can, and they can talk, the guidance counselors are awesome. I mean, they can just talk about school, what are your classes, let's look at how do you feel about it, and it just opens up a line of communication. So, not only are you listening to your child and hopefully helping them I want to make sure that I'm not saying or being interpreted as dismissing how hard that is. Right. So you're not dismissing the fact that your child is being attacked or your friend is being attacked or, because that's a shitty feeling. So acknowledging that feeling is like, oh yeah, that really can be unsettling. It can make you feel, like you need to do something about it. Let's look at why someone would be that way. Chances are they're in that state. Like they feel the same way. Like they feel that feeling and they need to do something about it. I don't know. To me, it's more, it's not about defending oneself so much as removing oneself.
Yeah. Okay.
This is when I wish I had my daughter Chloe here to answer that question, because she would have more feedback on what has helped her and what was not so helpful, because I'm just sitting over going, here's what I've tried.
Yeah.
And no one can get away from it. It's just how reality works. It's not terrible. Right. We can sit here and say it's terrible.
I think I grew up in such a cloistered environment. I actually never really learned until I got out as an adult kind of what that even is about. And then I just would isolate or whatever. So I never.
Well, because you didn't feel like you could handle it. Yeah, and so can you see then? Well, can you see then why you would do that to your own children? Because your lack of awareness on how to handle it, you don't know, have a sense of what to do. And so your way of handling it through coping, isolation, what that eventually does and what you're not aware of is the impact that makes. You're basically teaching your kids they can't handle things. You can't handle it. You aren't strong enough.
And luckily, I never even, I actually still have to have the conversation with them that they have something. I felt like that there's something that they're going to learn how to work with.
Yeah, and it's not bad. It's not a bad thing, and it isn't make them special. This is common, and it's good to know because it allows you to figure out the best way for them to figure it out. And you can even say, the girl that I go to for therapy, she has the same problem, and she didn't even know how to read till 4th grade.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, it's so common. So many people. Yeah, so it's so to label or, you can say, well, there's a name for it, but it's really common and it's not a big deal. We just need to make sure when you're confused or don't understand that we take the time to help you understand it. And also one of the things that I've been able to do to help my youngest is to say and just talk to her about, do you ever feel like you're afraid to raise your hand because you know the question, you don't understand, it seems so dumb? She's like, oh my God, totally. I was like, yeah, I felt the same way. But you know what? If you don't ask the question, you're never going to learn. So sometimes you can talk to the teacher afterwards, and eventually as but just, I guess it helps to have the personal experience of it. Maybe that's where you need to find a guidance counselor that can help communicate this stuff, that may have way more experience with it.
Yeah, on what steps we can do.
Yeah, and the things to look for, because the last thing you want is a child to feel, again, not that there is anything wrong with being dumb, but to feel that they are voiceless because there's something wrong with it, right? I felt that there was something wrong with it, and therefore I was embarrassed, which is why I never raised my hand, which is why I went through years and years of grade school learning very little.
Right. Yeah.
So first of all, getting them to not be scared of being not the smartest would be a huge breakthrough. So what? Everybody learns at a different pace,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You got to get over your stigma of that and fear of that.
Yeah, I think I'm ready.
So
there's no other option. I can't go back.
Yeah,
so
and
it's good. But Yeah, and actually, I found an interesting program that I took a 2-day technician class for this sound health, sort of like vocal profiling stuff. Because it turns out that your voice is directly linked into your vagus nerve, and every single thing in your body has its own frequency and can be actually measured through your voice. And anyway, it was something I was interested in, so I'm gonna look into possibly becoming a practitioner
Fun.
or something, like assuming that everything with the kids goes well.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, it's really cool. So you can basically create frequencies that harmonize with other frequencies to help heal. And so, yes. And my husband has worked in the past a lot with nursing homes. So we're kind of thinking about, well, he's excited to start it as a business. I'm like, let's just take this slow.
Yeah.
So, anyway, but
that's really exciting.
But it's cool. So yeah, so hopefully, so it was neat how that kind of popped up as something I was really interested in that came across my path, and so I'm kind of have something to look into myself as the transition happens that I can possibly work as a side thing.
I'm really proud of you.
It's exciting.
You kind of busted out.
Ready.
I think this is so great. You're in a good space. Just, you know what? Keep yourself detached from the outcome and stay focused on the pleasure of the experience, right?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well,
how many sessions do we have left?
a lot.
Okay, cool.